Hello and welcome to Energy Insights. Today on the podcast, I've got Rahul Malik, the CIO of Centrica Energy. Rahul, thank you for coming and taking the time to talk to us. Please introduce yourself.
It's a pleasure, Tarun. Thanks for having me here. So I'm Rahul Malik, and I'm the CIO for Centrica Energy. We are the trading and optimization arm of Centrica PLC. I've been in the technology space for more than 2 decades now, primarily dedicated to uh, interest rate derivatives in the beginning of my career, pricing tools, risk management tools, developing coding around them, and that was my introduction to derivatives. Took that knowledge on to start the commodities trading platform for Citigroup in Europe. And so I spent around 15 years with Citi in total in the mixture of the roles, initially with interest rate derivatives and then with starting the commodities trading platform over here, which was hugely benefiting for me because I had no input as far as commodities are concerned when I first started in, and by the time I left Citi, I'd learned quite a few things. So spent about 8 years of that, and then moved on to Centrica, where again it was essentially a subset of what I did in Citi, primarily energy trading, looking at the platform that we had. That joined them at a phase where utilities were kind of taking over from banks in terms of being the primary providers as far as trading is concerned. Most of the banks were essentially selling their books at that point of time. So it was a great time to be in a utility. Uh, been in Centrica for the last 11 years, still trying to revamp their trading platform. At a time when the business has grown manifold, at a time when the number of commodities we trade has grown manifold, at a time when the significance of trading for the broader PLC has increased manifold as well. So yeah, it's been 2 decades of learning, 2 decades of dabbling in derivatives, 2 decades of learning commodities and derivatives in general.
What an incredible background, and we're delighted to have the opportunity of unpacking some of that experience on the podcast and hopefully get some insights for our viewers about all of these topics. So, Rahul, the Centrica business, especially the Centrica Energy part of the business, is seen as the trading and optimization arm of the broader Centrica PLC. It's a vertically integrated energy company. Could you unpack for us a little bit what does the integrated nature of that business entail, and how does that benefit the trading business?
Yeah, so Centrica PLC is absolutely vertically integrated, and we're very proud of that. And I think that's held us to good stead, especially in the last few years. So essentially, we're in a space where we have an interest in upstream businesses, which is production of energy. That could be through the nuclear fleet, that could be through some of the interests we have in gas fields, etc. And also in terms of more recently renewables assets. We have an interest in supplying power and gas to our downstream customers, which could be retail, with people, or which could be smaller or large scale businesses. So we do that. And in between, we have our trading and optimization business, which essentially interfaces with our upstream business, helps provide a route to market for them because the production that we have needs to make its way to the market. And then it also interfaces with the downstream business because clearly they need power and gas to be procured from the markets at the best possible price for our customers. So we have this really lovely position in between upstream and downstream where we work with both, ultimately to make sure of three things. One, that we maintain security of supply in UK and other geographies in Europe, to make sure that we provide energy to our customers at the most fair possible price, and thirdly, to make sure that we contribute towards Centrica PLC's revenues and P&L ultimately.
So let's talk a little bit about the volume and the size of the business then. If you had to put some numbers to the business volumes, talk to us a little bit about what sort of commodities does Centrica Energy trade and what are the associated volumes attached to them?
Sure. So we essentially trade in three main areas. One is power and gas trading, as most of the people would know it, financial as well as physical, short term as well as trading on the curve. Then we trade in the global LNG markets, both physical cargoes as well as any trading on the back of those cargoes, which could be locational spreads, which could be for example, ILO gas capacity related trading. And then lastly, it's renewables trading and optimization, where we provide a route to market for thousands of assets around Europe because they're not qualified from a market risk trading or technology perspective to be able to route their power. They need someone like us to route their power onto the grid, and we provide those solutions. So those are the three main areas we have. To answer your question about the scale, it's grown rapidly over the last few years. So we now operate in 27 countries in Europe, trading power and gas in some shape or form. So that is quite a big part of Europe. We are thinking of expanding that expertise into North America sometime very, very soon as well.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that we're really excited about that. We're also, as far as the LNG markets are concerned, we're operating across the globe, and we have 150 to 200 cargoes. Is the kind of volume that we're dealing with, the scale that we're dealing with at the moment. With the power and gas trading, we are, as I said, in 27 countries. That translates into around 6 million trades, around about per annum, that we have to look after. And then on the renewable side, it's more than 2,500 assets dotted all across Europe, solar farms, wind farms, and some other sources like batteries, for example, that we optimize and manage on a day in, day out basis. So it's a very large scale operation. And going back to your earlier point about we being part of a vertically integrated company, which is absolutely true, but always want to add to that by saying we're also a portfolio which is horizontally linked very, very strongly, from power and gas trading to LNG trading to renewable asset trading and optimization. We are one of the few players that bring it all together and are able to offer solutions to customers that are a lot more powerful just by the virtue of the breadth of our portfolio. So
I really like that horizontally aligned, and that synergy sounds very interesting. I think that brings a great power into the business, not from a commodity perspective just, but from a influence perspective, from how solutions are looked at. It would be great for you to expand on that topic for us a little bit more.
yeah, that's an evolving trend. We're very proud of that. And we think that's a great way of doing three things. One, it normalizes our portfolio because we're not dependent just on gas, which is here to stay, but a waning commodity in terms of how much of it is actually used for power consumption now. So we're not entirely dependent on that. We're not entirely dependent on renewables, which are obviously the flavor of the day, and by every passing day the amount of renewables being pumped onto the grid is increasing, but there are intermittency related issues with it. You can't completely depend on renewables as time stands. So we're not just dependent on that. We're also not just dependent on the fact that we're trading in 27 countries, whether it's power, gas, renewables. We have a global LNG portfolio that helps us bring into play the macroeconomic conditions across the world, not just in Europe, not just the countries that we are operating in from a trading perspective. So we can blend the changing energy mix that is coming into play across the world, not just in Europe or North America, by the strength of our portfolio being broad across these three verticals. So for us, it's making sure that we have in play a portfolio that minimizes future risk, because we are in play in all the three main areas as far as energy is concerned. It's great from a P&L perspective as well, because if one of the areas doesn't do well, then you're able to substitute that with growth from a different area. And the last, as a technologist, I have to say that there is huge degrees of overlap between the three areas as far as the underlying trading platform is concerned. And the synergy between them, the commercial synergy between them, is helping us in a great way to unlock even more potential from the data that we have, the systems that we have, the applications that we have. We're getting far more value from them than, say, 3, 4, 5 years back, when each of these areas of the business would be looked at as a siloed business with its own set of applications and platforms, etc. So I think that's really relevant from a technology perspective for me.
And one of the things that I think needs to be appreciated is Centrica Energy was one of the first companies across Europe to successfully make their move into the cloud in a DevOps first fashion, which got talked about quite a lot in conferences as well. Now that you're all in cloud and you have this philosophy of a horizontally aligned company, what does it mean from a technology perspective? What does it mean from a tooling perspective? How do you look at programs to bring more alignment across that horizontally aligned portfolio?
Yeah, well, look, I'd like to point out we're in the cloud only from an infrastructure perspective. I stay very grounded in terms of what needs to be achieved as a technologist, as a CIO in our business. And the cloud move for us was a game changer, right? We started, I remember having conversations with you way back, I think 7 or 8 years now, in terms of the fact that, look, we need to do something about it. Cloud was an emerging trend over then. And yes, we were one of the first to move on to the cloud in Europe in the energy trading circles. But what that opened up was a pathway for increased automation from a DevOps perspective. So, our ability to react to commercial opportunities increased quite a lot, and it benefited us quite a lot, whether it's in the power and gas trading space or in the renewable space or in the LNG space as well. So that was all great. But what's happened over the last 3 years is now that, yes, we're on the cloud, yes, we got DevOps. As we start getting into a space where other technical trends come into play, like, for example, AI and Gen AI more recently, we're now getting into a space where, going back to my earlier point, able to monetize the strengths that we have from a platform perspective, for power and gas trading, for LNG trading, from a renewables trading perspective. We're able to blend those strengths now, and the sum of the parts is far greater than the individual solutions that we had in place. A great example of that is data. You have data is the bedrock of whatever analytical decision making you do in the power and gas trading space, in the LNG space, or in the renewable space. In a siloed fashion, it's still useful. You still rely on data to be the primary kind of guidance in terms of your trading decisions. But the moment you assemble your data and analytics capability across power and gas, LNG, and renewables together, the sum of the parts again is so far greater, so much more impactful for the business, that it's really great to see and very surprising to see as well. So yeah, we've been spending that time getting all these different parts of the horizontal value chain together from a technology perspective. It started with the cloud journey, went a bit further with DevOps, is going even further with AI and Gen AI and all the other technology that has emerged over the last few years.
So with the advent of renewables and the intermittency, more data is needed in order to get better forecast. More models are created internally to get better forecasts. And with all of that, the explosion of data is huge, right? And so this question always comes up, no matter what forum you talk in, is it better to have a unified data platform bringing data from different parts of the business together? Or is it better to have dedicated data platforms for businesses to give them the nimbleness to iterate on their data faster? What's your verdict on that?
Yeah, sure. I think a hybrid model is what works best. What do I mean by that? You had to start decomposing what is a data platform. And for me, if I was to simplify it, for data platform is the underlying data that you have. Could be fundamental data, could be market data. That has to be in one place for us to be able to get better, more richer insight for our business lines. Absolutely no doubt about that. On top of that, the tooling that you develop, the analytics that you develop, they have to be customized towards a certain business line for them to be really, really effective, and for us also to be in a space where we are nimble in terms of making changes to those tools or to develop new tools if we were to for a business line. So I think the answer is having a core data layer which essentially stores all the fundamental market data that you have, but then having the tooling developed and created in a manner which is collaborative with the specific business line that you're working with. That bit can be siloed, for the lack of a better word. I think it's more effective that way, whilst the underlying data layer stays common.
Okay, so Rahul, what do you see as the emerging market trends in energy markets in the upcoming future horizons of 18, 24, 36 months?
Yeah, for me, I'll talk about power, because for me, the biggest trend is that power is the commodity to look for. And that's no surprise at all, because I said this earlier on, gas is on the wane. Still, it's going to be around. We're not going to be in a gas-free world anytime soon. But power is the commodity that is essentially key for the future. And the first trend that I see, and it's quite obvious, is that there's going to be more consumption. The demand for power is just going to surge and surge. As a technologist, I point out to data centers, for example, our reliance on them. With the advent of Gen AI and AI and everything, that demand is just only going to grow. People want to do more with data with every passing day. I'm not even going to touch on crypto, etc. But it's all pointing to one area: increased demand for power. So that's the biggest trend out there. The second trend is a subset of that, which is essentially, well, you want more power, you want green power, you want clean power, and continuing evolution of renewables, increased investment in renewables, increased contribution of renewables towards the power mix that the various grids have at this point of time. That's only going to go one way. You're going to have more and more green power in the mix. The gas is going to go down in terms of its contribution. So that's a big trend. So that's the second big trend that I see. The third one then is, yes, we have renewables, but they have a big problem, which is intermittency, and power in itself has a big problem. It can't be stored. So the third big trend is to get to a state where the intermittency of renewables power, which is now becoming more and more in terms of its contributions to the power complex, the intermittency will be dealt with. How would it be dealt with? Whether it's through battery storage, for example, whether it's through solutions like Power to X, where you use electrolyzers to change green power into a more storable commodity like hydrogen, for example, which can be stored but can also be moved around from an area of low kind of demand, which is where a bulk of the renewable power gets produced in the first place. It's either offshore or in really remote locations. And therefore, investment in translating this renewable power either into batteries or into commodities like hydrogen would be a big trend for the future, at least as I see it. So those are the three big trends that I see coming up. And as a technologist, for me, the key thing is technology has a big part to play in each of these trends getting executed over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Brilliant. I mean, the trend around hydrogen is very interesting. Having said that, you see there's a lot of negative pricing on the grid at times, and I think we've surpassed the 100 hours of negative pricing in the UK a couple of months ago now. And if that power could be used for the electrolysis process to generate hydrogen, then that's certainly a future that will emerge, as it's still preempted that hydrogen is very much in its infancy as we speak now.
It is very much, but it's a very big option simply because of the fact that, as you said, it helps deal with excessive supply, which is quite common, especially during summer months. But it also helps to dealing with the deficit between areas of low demand and high demand, because it can be transported quite easily compared to building up power lines and things like that. So there is lots going for it. It will take time, though, for it to take effect. We are, as a business, looking at it. I know there are many other parts of Europe, many other companies in Europe that are looking at it as well. So it will take time to mature, but it's definitely an option, especially because for renewables to be successful, the intermittency issue has to be dealt with, and that can't just be with batteries. It has to be something else complementing that.
Very interesting. So from a technology perspective, Rahul, running a transformation, early on you talked about bringing the trading platforms in Centrica Energy to the forefront and digitizing them to make the organization more nimble. How do you measure success? What kind of KPIs does a trading business need to invent to see the effectiveness of its IT investment translate into business value?
Sure. Yeah, look, we spend a lot of time transforming the platform in Centrica. Are we there yet? By no means. There's still a lot of work to be done, but I think we made significant progress, I would say. And how do I say that? How do I measure that? And for me, three factors stand out, which I continually use to see, are the solutions that we're providing to our commercial heads, are they working at a strategic level? The first one is cost per trade. It's something that's very close to my heart. For a business to grow, you need to make sure that it's on solid ground, it's on scalable ground, and cost per trade is a very important way to actually making that happen if you're tracking that metric. Because if your cost per trade is not under control, you can't scale your business up. And in this day and age, especially as you start dabbling into more and more of algorithmic trading, the volumes of trades are just increasing. If your platform and solutions are not efficient from a cost per trade perspective, there's no way your business can grow. So very important keeping that in check. The second one is time to market. So yeah, it's well and good you have a very efficient platform, but if you can't react to market opportunities very quickly, uh, then you got a problem. And that's especially true in this day and age. I remember 5 to 7 years back when the business would want to trade a new product, would have a lot of time, before the business actually needed it. So there was a lot of time between an idea coming in and it getting executed, and it was fine. But with the way that the geopolitical situation is, the macroeconomics are these days, opportunities can come here and now, right? And you need to be able to react to them, to be able to monetize them as quickly as possible. So how quickly are you able to do that? Does your enterprise architecture enable you to react to opportunities quickly? It's really important measuring that. You can do that by looking at some of the deals that have come up, especially the more complex ones in the recent past. How many of them were you able to support the business on within the time they wanted, and things of that sort. So that's a really important metric as well. If you asked me this question 5 years back, I would just stop there. I would just say two things: cost per trade, time per market. What I've learned in the last couple of years, or what has really struck me in the last couple of years especially, is that third metric, which is speed of innovation. And if you look at innovation maybe 4 to 5 years back, everybody was doing it. It was a luxury item, right? We do it on the side, there's a pot of money for it, create something, everybody would go wow. But the impact of it on the enterprise as a whole was generally quite limited. So it wasn't enterprise strength innovation that was going
It's
on.
more like a POC or
It was a POC or something small somewhere, looked good, but you just forget about it quite quickly. But where we're going now is, especially with Gen AI coming in, and technology evolving at such a rapid pace over the last 12, 18 months, the speed of innovation is an absolutely, absolutely key metric. And it's probably the hardest one to measure, but it's something that you have to keep an eye on. How many use cases are you actually looking at from a AI perspective or a digital perspective, new technology perspective? How many of those use cases are actually becoming successful? Is that happening in only one part of the business, or is it happening across the value chain? I would keep an eye on things like that, because they give you an indicator of, are we in a state, or is your organization in a state where it's embracing new technology or not? Which for me is really important, because I use this phrase quite a lot. For me, AI is not an overnight revolution. It's not an overnight transformation. It's not a magic bullet that's going to transform your business into something else in a day, in a week, in a month, or even a year. It's an iterative transformation. And it would have changed your business over a period of time without you really knowing it. But that can only happen if you continually keep on getting use case after use case looked at, done, and hopefully successfully implemented. So keeping an eye on that as a technologist for me is really important.
brilliant. And so, Rahul, generative AI, it's the new kid, the new trend. Over the last 18 months, it's become quite a important aspect of any digital strategy, right? And we're seeing a lot of companies dabbling with it. What has your experience been with generative AI?
Fantastic. Look, I'll confess this here. I've never been one of those people that see a new technical trend or a new technology come out, and the next day I want to spend some money or resource trialing it out. I would rather see a bit of action maybe in some other domains, or maybe in one or two of our peers doing it, and be one of the first followers instead. I've always followed that kind of an instinct, and it's worked well for me till Gen AI came in. I mean, Gen AI, when it came in and started reading about the potential of it, I was very interested in trying it out straight away, being a leader, being one of the first to do something with it. So for me, GenAI is an absolutely powerful transformation tool that can help transform business from front to back. From a trading perspective, whether you're looking at it from a front office perspective, middle office perspective, back office perspective, GenAI has something to offer. It has something to offer from a, going back to the metrics we talked about, cost per trade. GenAI can help with that immensely. It's probably the first things that we should look at in terms of where GenAI should be used by through business process automation. GenAI is immensely helpful in making sure that we have the most optimized business processes that are possible. So that's in the short term. But in the medium longer term, I'm hoping that as data platforms take shape, let's be fair, in most of the companies, they're in a slightly disparate state at the moment, probably some more time to just get them in the most powerful state that they can be in. GenAI would be really, really cool in terms of unlocking value that is there in our data beyond what we do at the moment. Of course, we use data to gather insight right now and act on it. But I think GenAI would help unlock it in a manner that hasn't been seen before. Now, the how I don't know, when I don't know, but that's my feeling, that I think that's an area where in the medium to long term, GenAI is going to play a really, really big part. And then thirdly, from an employee productivity perspective, right, making sure that our employees, my peers, people I work with on a day in, day out perspective in my organization, they are spending time on quality. They're spending time to do something analytical. They're spending time in a way that is fruitful, productive, rather than cobbling together spreadsheets or cobbling together data or manually doing workflows that can be completely automated, or by pulling together data that can be, with technology pulled together quite easily these days. So transforming that employee experience, that's a big area where GenAI is going to help out as well. So it's here to stay. It's here to transform. But I would repeat it, it's going to be iterative transformation, not something overnight.
It's quite easy to sort of look at a technology like that and think about approaching it with a technical first lens. As you said, right, you generally wait to see the impact of technology proven before you follow, and sometimes that's a good approach, but in this case it felt getting ahead of the peer group was important on this very interesting trend. But in that vein, sometimes it's easy to invest in building technology platforms and thinking the business will come. How have you seen the rollout of AI, generative AI specifically, being business first, and how do you advocate for it to become business first? How do you bring business on a journey to lead with this innovation?
Yeah, well, two simple principles I follow, my team follows, our business follows. One is digital literacy. It's an absolute must that our businesses become digitally literate. Not just the IT teams, of course, they need to upskill themselves. But what's happening with Gen AI coming in is that the barrier to actually learning technology has been reduced dramatically, right? You don't need to have a technical degree or a technical background to be able to exploit technology. But that can only happen if you let people in the business be exposed to the new technical trends, train them up, spend time educating them, especially the ones who actually want to do it, who are passionate. So finding agents in front office, middle office, back office who actually want to learn new technology, at least to a certain level, a decent level, having that literacy in the business is really important. For example, in our business, in coordination with Avanade, you guys helped us a lot with this across locations, globally. We did this series of workshops that was simply aimed at reaching out to every resource in our business wherever they work and helping them explain what the power of Gen AI was, not just in energy trading, not just in trading, but across domains. The idea being that you generate a pull from the business for technology. And that to me is super critical. Because there are two ways you can push technology out. You can push it out based on your belief in it as a technologist, or you can actually generate a curiosity and therefore a pull from the business for the technology. The former is easy to do and quick, but it doesn't always work. The latter is what stands the test of time. So for me, that is really, really important, generating the literacy, increasing the skill levels of the business so that they can come out with ideas. They can come out with, well, we need this solution. Could you do this for us based on what we have seen in other domains, based on what you guys showed us through your workshops, etc. That for me is really key as far as getting Gen AI done is concerned and getting it adopted is concerned. The second part is start small. So it fits in with my earlier statement or the couple of words, iterative transformation. Looking for a magical solution that you can go back to your head of the business or commercial heads with, I wouldn't do that because it's probably going to take a lot of time. And by that time, their curiosity in AI is going to die, and therefore they won't have the time to spend on it. So I would look out for low-hanging fruit. I would look out for, as I said, business process automation-related solutions, which are very, very simple to implement. The success rate is very, very high, and get some credibility from the business, get some interest from the business. Also, it leads to training of your team because you're getting exposed to technology in a controlled way. It gets the business educated. They are seeing technology implemented fruitfully, productively, not just in POCs. And that for me is really key. Start small, build some credibility, and then aim bigger after that. So for me, that is absolutely key. The third one is making sure that your commercial heads, your heads of the businesses, people at that level, they are literate enough about technology, technical trends, Gen AI, the power it brings, because ultimately they pay for what happens in the technology
So
space
true.
one way or another. And also, these are probably the most knowledgeable people that you might have in the business. These are the most influential people that you might have in the business. Would it not be great if they are extremely well versed with technology, well versed with the power of Gen AI, well versed with power of AI in general, that they would have ideas once they have that literacy that they can come back to you and saying, look, what about this based on everything that I have seen? Or they might talk to their peers about it and get some ideas, on the back of those conversations. So I think that's the third most important bit, making sure people at the board level, making sure people, who are heads of businesses, they are sufficiently literate about AI, Gen AI, etc.
Great. It's such an evolving technology. I mean, when we look back, models like GPT came out in a very quick succession, went from 3, 3.5, 4, 4.0, and that bandwagon of innovation is driving simplicity. And a lot of what was being crafted as a surround solution is now getting baked into these frontier models. It's probably unfair to assume that the first use cases that are executed will be successful from the outset, right? And failure is but natural. But for a lot of the organizations, sometimes they look at a technology adoption, and earlier failures usually results in projects being shut down. Can I ask you to talk a little bit about what has your success rate been with Gen AI, and have you seen failures? And if so, were failures embraced or were lessons learned?
Yeah, sure. I won't go into the numbers of it, but have we seen failures? Absolutely. Not everything that we have trialed over the last 18 months in this space has worked. And for me, fostering that culture where failures are accepted is absolutely key. Also, fostering a culture where you get to failure and acknowledge failure as early as possible is absolutely key, because sometimes there can be a degree of pride in it. Look, I need to somehow make it work, dress it up, and then you waste a lot of time, money in it, and you lose credibility of the business as well because they can see through it. So for me, that's absolutely key as well, that you are in a space where you let failures happen and you celebrate them because there's work involved in that. But more importantly, failing as fast as you can rather than just protracting it and then spending months and years on it. That's really key. But the third one, which is really key for me as well, is I don't like failure. I mean, like every other human being. So I think it's really important looking at your hit rate. And if 4 or 5 of your use cases are failing out of 10, then you probably need to start looking at how you're picking up your use cases. Are you following the right strategy in that space? Or maybe some other features, skill levels, etc. So really important also making sure that yes, you embrace failure, but you don't embrace widespread failure. I mean, it within reasonable limits, and you react to the failures as well. You learn from them because a failure could be genuinely because seemed great on paper, that idea, but the technology is not mature enough to deal with it, or it could be because we just didn't implement it right. We didn't have the skills and so on and so forth. So analyzing failures is important as well. And as I said, if you're having more than 3 or 4 out of 10, you need to take a strong look at it and revisit your setup, I guess.
Brilliant. And so, Rahul, you talked a little bit about looking at generative AI in this iterative, evolving implementation fashion, and that incremental nature of building up the transformation is going to have a big return on investment in the 2-3 year horizon. When we think about business process automation, we think about the human in the loop. And if the human in the loop is the business user, they're thinking, ethically, am I doing out myself, my role, my job? How do you balance that contention when you think about business transformation with technology and the simplicity that may rule people out from a job, right? And that I'd love a take from you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, that's a great challenge, right? And that's perhaps one of the first challenges that your business leaders would talk about, especially when you start talking to them about business process automation and what that could potentially do for their business line. Like that sounds great, but how am I going to communicate this to our business, right? It doesn't, it sounds very grim. But for me, this is again a key part of literacy. And when you make people literate about digital, about new tech, about AI, it's not just about, well, this is what the technology can do, but also teaching them the impact that this is going to have on the workforce. So, and if you look at any of the historical trends, when the first Windows OS started getting rolled out, and certainly computers started becoming democratized, and everybody is started using one. There were fears of a similar kind, right? Well, what are people going to do anymore? The computer is going to do everything. And we talked earlier on about this fear that was there with designers, that they're not needed anymore because there's software now that can help with designs and so on and so forth. And what really transpired was that even more designers were needed because technology helps unlock more opportunity, and to actually execute on those opportunities, you need more people. The only difference is you need more people who actually now have these new skills. So a key part of the education, therefore, for the people is that, hey, you may not be seen in the same job, doing the same day-to-day work that you are doing right now, but that doesn't mean we don't need you. We need you, but we need you upskilled. We need you, and we need you in a new avatar, doing a different job, because we're going to use technology to grow. We're not going to use technology to shrink. That for me is a really, really important differentiation, that why are we using technology? Of course, I said cost per trade is an important metric, but you ask any business leader what they would rate equally highly, if not more, is we want to use it to grow. We want to use it to differentiate ourselves from competition, and to do that differentiation, to go into more geographies, to do more products, to do more complex things. You need more people, right? So it's not like people are going to go away completely. People are going to be moved to a completely different style of work, and for that there's a degree of upskilling that is needed. Really important also educating people that upskilling doesn't need any technical backgrounds, that upskilling doesn't need you to be a technologist, that upskilling doesn't need you to have any particular experience. It only needs willingness and passion to learn. If you have that, you're safe. You will just be doing a far more enjoyable job, satisfying job than you do at this point of time. So there's nothing to lose. It's a win-win for the businesses and the employees as well.
Interesting, interesting. The regulatory environment around us is changing, and some people say that the REMA evolution is going to be really driving a fundamental shift in how power markets trade. And that's probably going to foster more of the growth in the decarbonization with renewables at the forefront. When these regulatory programs come out, they absorb a lot of the transformation budget, right? And When you look at an organization where you're investing in helping the business excel forward and yet spending a lot of money to comply with the regulatory affairs, how do you sort of balance between the two paradigms? One is necessary from a regulatory perspective, and the second is necessary from a value generation perspective. I'd love your take on that.
Look, there's not much of a choice really, right? Regulation is there for a good reason. And it's important for regulation to be there to make sure that the markets operate in a way that is fair to everybody, right? Including people like you and me at the end of the day. So yes, regulation is something that's coming in thick and fast. It's all sorts of regulation that is coming in, especially because of the interest people have in energy these days. Compare that to 15 years back. I remember 15 years back, I didn't even remember who my supplier of power and gas was. The prices were minimum. I mean, it was all very, very benign and nobody cared. Compare that to now, people are switching deals, and because it's such a big
Prosumers.
expense, and then there are prosumers who are coming into play. So the world has changed over the last 15 years. Now with renewables coming in and storage capabilities coming in, the complex has become, the power complex or the energy complex in general has become a lot more complicated. So it's therefore important for regulation to come in. Otherwise, people could be exploiting the market evolution that is happening at this point of time. So, for us, it's the key thing is staying on top of it and making sure aware of regulation and understand it as early as possible, rather than leaving it to the end, because then it becomes hugely disruptive. And you work with the business in making sure that you identify the impact of that regulation and you plan it out, because that's the best you can do. You can't avoid it. As I said, it's something that's got to be done, and in many cases, it's a good thing to do. So the key is just planning it in advance. Interestingly, I mean, Gen AI could have a huge role to play in reducing the disruption that regulation causes, because one of the first things that come your way when a new regulation comes in is a 390-page document, right? And you spend a lot of time reading it, or somebody does, to find out, well, what are those 9 pages that really impact me? And Gen AI could have a huge role to play in that, condensing or identifying the key information that's relevant to you, the part you play in the energy complex, and so that you can act on that super quickly, rather than having to wait for those 400 pages we read somewhere and then missing out on something. So, but yeah, in a nutshell, planning is the key. And as I said, maybe an opportunity for Gen AI to make implementation of regulations easier.
I love how you picked out the modality of text understanding as one of the applications of generative AI.
Absolutely.
So Rahul, what are the other modalities as you see from these frontier large language models that would apply into trading businesses?
But the impact is quite large. I can't unfortunately go into the details because some of this is proprietary, and this is an area of differentiation. But at a high level, I covered business process automation, which can be centered around reading large documents or unstructured data. That's a really massive use case for me. Without going into the specifics of how and why. Effort that we can put in terms of data insight generation by firstly getting our data platforms right, and then utilizing Gen AI to unlock insight that we haven't unlocked so far. That's quite major. I talked about employee productivity using tooling that's on offer now, the various co-pilots, etc. That's amazing. Lowering the barrier to entry as far as creating technical solutions are concerned by very simple training of employees. That's absolutely key as well. So all of these combined are hugely productive use cases for the business. Now it's a question of identifying for your business what could you do in each of these areas. But I would leave that for people who understand their business as well to decipher.
The data platforms have been on a journey forever now, right? Look back 10 years and they have come back, the data platforms, in many incarnations, very much from a storage perspective to a very much now of a real-time analytics perspective. And it feels like the journey for data platforms is going to continue to evolve. It's very easy to fail data programs if approached in a way where it's not use case led. What has your experience been with data platforms, and what will be your advice to people that are thinking about applying and building data platforms for analytics in 2024?
Yeah, you answered a fundamental part of it, which is being use case led. I think till now, one of the mistakes I've seen many enterprises make, including ours perhaps, is that you get far too engrossed in the solution and you don't look at, well, what problem am I trying to solve with this? And especially with so much technology on offer, we saw this earlier on when data lakes came in. Everybody wanted to make a data lake, and then like, okay, we got one. What do we do with it?
And then we ended up with data swamps,
and
right?
then data swamps were the next step of that. So that's what you want to avoid, and you can only avoid it with what you said. You're very, very clear about what's the problem that you're trying to solve in the first place, and you create your data platform in a way that it solves that set of problems. For me, that is absolutely, absolutely key. The second part is that you have your data in a way that is easily accessible, right? Whether it's to a technically gifted employee who wants to programmatically access data, or whether it's to somebody who doesn't want to program, just wants to access data, slice, dice, pivot it in a very easy way. So democratization of data is really important.
Bringing that culture of self-service from the outset.
Exactly, the self-service part is really important, because these are the people who understand the opportunities that reside within data really, really well. So if you just collect data and you're not exposing it in an easy form to everybody in the company, you're minimizing the number of use cases you're going to get straight away, right? And the moment you expose it, people play around with data, they get ideas, they get curious, they will give you more use cases. And so that's the other key thing as far as data platforms is concerned. So I'd basically pick up on those two as key areas that one should watch out for. And that's something we're doing as well. We're learning from that.
As a CIO now, Rahul, if you had to give advice to budding CIOs and technology leaders who aspire to become the CIOs of the future, what would your advice to them be?
Well, first thing is I'm still learning, and especially in the current technical climate, I think that's perhaps the one biggest trait you need to have. You need to have that thirst for knowledge. You need to have that thirst to keep in touch with what's going on in the technology side of things, because 10 or 15 years back, you would have the same set of solutions. You learned them over a period of time. Once you learned them, you were gold, right? You could just survive off that. But you can become obsolete very, very quickly if you're not learning in the current climate. So keeping abreast of technology, the technical evolution that's happening, the technical revolution that's happening, I think that for me is really, really important. The second is making sure that technology is serving a business, a commercial purpose, going back to the point we had about data as well. So making sure that link is firm, is strong, is very visible, is something that you're constantly checking is very, very important. Very difficult to get right. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but you need to be aware of that so that you can do something about it. So yeah, being aware of a commercial touch with technology, a commercial driver behind whatever work you're doing in technology is really important for me, and it's a big criteria for success, I would say. And I think the third one is people. You can't, whether you are a CIO, a CTO, or any sort of a technology leader, you can't do things on your own. You can have ideas, you can have a vision. You need to have the right set of people to help execute that. You need to have people who are broad in terms of their experience, different kinds of people who can challenge you and push you to think in different ways. I think that's super important. If I was to pick out of the three, one thing, it's people perhaps, because if you don't have a good team working with you, you lost the battle. With the best plans, might be the best technologists in the world, you can't implement your plans without people.
And how do you keep people motivated? Because this transformation in the current climate, which is resulting in umpteen opportunities, new markets, new innovations, how do you keep the team motivated to continue to sort of invest their time in learning new things and innovating new solutions for the business?
It boils down again. The literacy piece is really important. I insist on my team learning what's going on in the technical evolution that's happening at the moment, whether it's Gen AI or AI in general or other digital parts that are there. And simple things like Power BI, for example, being familiar with these things, so that they can work with their commercial stakeholders in identifying new use cases and essentially communicating that if they don't do that, they can become obsolete very, very quickly. So, and I want to say that not meaning it as a threat, but as a help. Uh, and also the fact that most of the technical leaders that I work with, and I'm sure this is true for all the other CIOs as well, they are very good in terms of understanding the underlying business. They're very good at understanding the functional, the commercial details of the business. Why not blend that with knowledge of new tech? Why not blend that with knowledge of digital? And it could be a really potent, powerful combination. So, just maybe encouraging that them from that perspective is really important.
And Rahul, we talked a lot about generative AI being the emerging trend, and it's going to unfold in many different variations. Time will tell, right, how and what we would see come out of that trend. What are some of the other trends that you see from a technology perspective that will probably have an impact on the trading businesses?
So from a trading perspective, when we talked about Gen AI, we talked about AI in general. So that is absolutely a very, very key trend that is coming into play, perhaps the most powerful one. The second one is the blurring of lines between the technology and the business, right? Especially again with AI coming in, especially with Gen AI coming in. I mentioned the barrier to entry from a technology perspective has become much lower now. So, and we should embrace that rather than drawing a line and saying, well, we are IT, we are going to develop all the technology solutions. The world is gradually going to a space where anyone could develop a solution. So for
With these
me,
co-pilots
this
certainly
the
allow people
co-pilots are
to write
coming
code
in everywhere
fairly quickly.
exactly. So getting to a space where uh, it's not just technology doing the technology job, if you see what I mean, uh, and you're welcoming technology solutions from various parts of the business. I think that is going to be really important. So technology being done outside of IT teams is essentially a very important trend that is coming up that we need to be prepared for. It's happening now. And it can spiral out of control if we don't keep an eye on that. So when I say keeping an eye on it, it's not stopping it, it's making sure there's a good framework in place to get the maximum value from it. So I think that's a really big trend. I think the third one is in terms of people and resources again. Um, with new technical solutions coming in by the day, what's becoming really important is that you choose the right people to actually invest in over the medium long term, people who are keen to learn, people who are keen to embrace new stuff, not just people who got 20 years of experience in doing something again and again. So I think that shift from being experienced to having a very strong willingness to learn is going to be absolutely important. So I see technology people in really strong roles now in some of the maybe smaller shops, even in hedge funds, for example, more fast moving places. They don't have a lot of experience, but they have this willingness to kind of learn technology across the board, learn the new kind of things that technology has to offer very, very quickly, and couple it very quickly with maybe the reduced amount of business knowledge they might have. That's a far more potent combination these days than, hey, I've done this for 20 years, so I'm better than everybody else. So I think keeping an eye on people like that is really important. They're going to be quite critical in future.
And with IT teams, technologists working so closely with business, the trend goes the other way around as well, where a lot of the technologists feel they have, if not equal, sometimes more knowledge than business to start to contribute in that area, right? So keeping an eye on whether IT can start to extend its services to do a lot of the business-centric work is
I
all
see.
but
I mean,
possible.
it's as you said, it's two ways. I talked about the blurring of the lines, and when the lines get blurred, it's natural diffusion, right? Diffusion happens both ways. It doesn't happen just one way. So it's in the business guys actually coming out with technology solutions, but it's also technology guys coming out with commercial solutions, and that is perhaps the most critical super trend that will come out. Let's say in 10 years' time, would there be a lot more technologists driving the business? You see that now in many industries, right? A lot of the people that are driving those businesses are technologists by heart, right? There's a reason for that. That's because technology has such a big part to play in running any business these days. So yeah, that diffusion is both ways. It's business people learning more technology, but technology people coming out with more commercial solutions. That's a big trend as well.
Excellent. Rahul, if you had to give your younger self advice going back 15, 20 years when you started your career to do something differently or more of, what would that advice be? And remember, Gen AI didn't exist back then.
Oh no, absolutely. Gen AI didn't exist, but search engines did. And if there's one thing I would do more, it's read about the business that you're working for. It's of paramount importance. Read about the technology trends as well. Also read about the commercial kind of uh, construct that your business has, because if you can marry the two together, the technology knowledge that you have with an understanding of the fundamentals of your business is really powerful. So I did spend quite a lot of time doing that earlier on, but it's never enough. So my biggest piece of advice would be to spend time understanding your commercial uh, key fundamentals for whichever business you are in. It doesn't matter, because that's super key for you to be able to impact the business more meaningfully.
It's been fascinating hearing about generative AI, about digital transformation, about a KPI-led, value-driven transformation. And we can all thank you for your time, Rahul. And it's been great to have you on the podcast today.
It's been a pleasure as ever, Tarun.
Thank you, and we hope to bring you back some point in the near real future and talk more about the next emerging trends and its application across trading.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you.